Welcome to Morningstar. I'm Holly Black. With me is Ken Wotton. He's manager of the Gresham House UK Microcap Fund. Hello.
Hi, nice to be here.
So we're celebrating today. It's the 25th anniversary this week of the alternative investment market, more commonly known as AIM. What is this stock market, Ken?
So AIM is the junior market for the London Stock Exchange, which means it's a market focused on trying to attract smaller, faster growth businesses because they have a slightly lighter touch regulatory framework and it's lower cost for companies to come and raise capital.
And why does a company list on AIM rather than on the main London Stock Exchange?
I think initially, when in the earlier days of AIM, it was viewed as a stepping stone towards the main market, although these days actually a lot of larger companies just stick with AIM. I think the main attractions are that the regulatory environment is it's slightly lighter touch, which doesn't mean it's not a regulated market, but it just means that companies find it easier in terms of the paperwork and the regulatory burden and the cost to raise capital from investors to fund their growth plan.
But it has got this reputation as the sort of riskier cowboy market. Where has that come from? Is it justified at all?
I think that reputation is a little bit outdated now. I think if you went back 10 or 15 years, there were a lot of headlines about AIM. And I think there was one in the US about AIM being a casino. And I think those days are really gone. The number of companies that are listed on AIM has reduced materially in that period since then. But the quality of the companies has also increased materially, which I think is a good thing. I think part of the reputation was driven by certain baddie sort of investment areas being prominent, so the .com in the early part of the century, and then also some of the mining and oil exploration companies that listed, which probably were a bit too high risk, and the investment case was quite binary and people lost money. But there are some high quality companies on AIM that have really used the market to great effect.
And I think some investors might think this is the place where you sort of dabble in penny stocks, but there are some absolutely huge companies on this market. Do you want to talk us through some of the biggest success stories we've seen on AIM?
Yeah, so there have been some big success stories on AIM, and companies like Abcam in healthcare, ASOS, the online retailer, Boohoo, the fashion retail business, and Fevertree, the tonic water business, are obviously household names and have been great successes and now very big companies. But also, AIM has produced a whole host of success stories that are maybe a bit less above the radar, but have used the market and the access to capital really to great success for growing their businesses. So a couple of examples would be Mattioli Woods, which is a wealth management business and pensions advisor, which has been a real success story over the past 15 years or so that it's been listed. And it's used the market periodically to access capital from investors to make acquisitions, and it's now a leading player in that sort of smaller end of the wealth management space.
And reflecting on 25 years of AIM, I sort of wonder if in today's world where we're constantly talking about disruptors and entrepreneurial businesses, whether actually this market is more relevant than ever.
I think it's absolutely relevant. I think as a flexible market where all sorts of different companies can find a strong pool of institutional capital to back their growth plans, I think it really is a viable proposition and for a lot of businesses, and an alternative to private equity, which has clearly come to more prominence over the last few years. It doesn't need to be seen anymore as a sort of correlation of the London Stock Exchange. I think there's some of those big names that we talked about earlier on, I think prove that big companies can use AIM very effectively and can stay there indefinitely.
Ken, thank you so much for your time. For Morningstar, I'm Holly Black.